Hey guys, RC here. Welcome back to a video update for Draft Day Sports College Football 2017. Yesterday, they came out with patch number 1.09, which you can download from the Wolverine Studios forums. It's a sticky topic in there, and they're putting all the patches in here. So here's your current patch as of yesterday. And let's take a look at the patch notes. This is what they addressed in this particular patch. And again, I do want to stress, this post was put up December 5th, and that was the day the game came out. And so here, just in a few months, we've already had 9 patches come out with tweaks and updates to the game, and so Brooks is very committed to putting out stuff to make the games better, and listening to some of the things that we talk about. Um, I do, and I want to thank him for that. He knows that I don't pull any punches when I critique games. Um, that I give my honest opinion on things, and sometimes it may not be what he wants to hear, but still he still listens and takes that into account. And I want to thank him for being so open-minded. Um, so let's take a look here at what has been done. So there's 7 basic fixes or tweaks in this patch. There was evidently an issue with juniors leaving early when you were exporting your draft classes. I wasn't familiar with that because I don't play the pro game, and so I haven't used the export draft class option. Better assignment of jersey numbers. I did notice this when you recruit the player after they sign. Right in here, it actually gives you the option to assign a jersey number. It shows what their current jersey number is, and it gives you a little drop down that you can change their jersey number. So I thought that was kind of neat. A little personalization. Um, let's see. You know what? While this is working there, I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. All right, there we go. All right, let's see. Added the importance of your current rank in recruiting. So basically, over here we have our top 25 poll. Ohio State's number 1, LSU's number 2, etc., etc. So when a player, let's take a look here. So when they're looking at values winning, that in and of itself is over time. And I think we talked about that. You might be undefeated this year, but if you were, a 5-17 the last 4 years, he's not going to really treat you like an undefeated team. He's going to treat you like a 5-7 team. Maybe a 6 or 7 win team at best, averaging out. But they're not taking that away. It's still going to be weighted towards, at least my understanding is it's still going to be heavily weighted towards a historical standing, status of the last few years. But if you're having a really good year, then that will translate. You will get a little bump in there. Let's take another look. Some performance updates. There were some people were having out of memory save issues. I haven't had that, but some people were. So he's tried to address that. This is the big one. This is the big one. I had made a note to Brooks that, in fact, I think we can come in here. Let me get to it. Sorry, guys. Let me close this. Let's look at all recruits. And all right, California. All right, and here's their national recruiting rank. So you can see the number of 5 stars, number of 4 stars. I mean, they have 2 of the top 10 players. Six of the top 20 players. That's pretty strong for California. Another state that typically produces a lot of college football players in real life, Georgia, not so much. You see here they're getting dinged a little bit. Now, one state that you don't really hear a lot of is New York, and yet they've got quite a few blue chippers in here from New York. Florida is the other one. And of course, I would expect to see that from Florida. Now, Louisiana, per capita, historically produces more Division I football talent than any other state in the country. And I brought this to his attention. I went, look, when my best guy in the state is number 150, and then the next guy is number 290, that's not very accurate. And he agreed with me. Now, you're saying, John, why, you're in your game and it's still showing that. Well, yes, I just updated the patch just now, but this draft class was already created, so I'd actually have to go through this recruiting cycle and get to next year before it takes effect. So, that is going to be one of the drawbacks of that. But, so what we're going to see, and per his own notes to me, is we will see a better redistribution on football output instead of overall population. More recruits available in the Southeast and fewer in places like New York. So I think that's huge. I think that will really balance out talent nationally and make recruiting a little bit easier, not easy, but a little bit easier and more balanced, especially since, when you're looking at distance being a driving motivation. Update calculation of current draft class rank, less focus on the number of recruits and more benefit for a higher quality class. I don't know that we needed that, but it's good because it's realistic. Basically what he's saying is you could recruit 50 players and they could be 1 5-star, 1 4-star, 28 3-stars, and then all the rest 2-stars, and you might wind up with a better ranked class than I would get with, say, 12 recruits if they were all 4 and 5-stars, just on sheer numbers. Oh my gosh, you got 50 players and he only got 20 players, so you got the better class. Whereas if you break it down, in another game we call it the average star rating. So, basically a 5-star plus a 4-star is 9 stars divided by 2 gives you a 4.5-star average. Same philosophy. So he's kind of adopted that. So it's more, going for higher quality will affect the actual draft class rank. And now that I think about it, I think that was important to do because of this one here. Added the importance of the current rank in recruiting. I know that's that on the surface that appears to be your national rank, not your class rank, but that all rolls into your prestige and everything else. So quite a few fixes in this particular one. You can definitely see from the patch notes it is the largest update or tweak since patch 0.06. So the last couple have just been some minor tweaks. This actually adds some meat and potatoes to the game in what it's doing. So looking forward to playing with this particular patch. Now they've updated the guides. I wish they would have maybe color coded things that were updated today. Because you're kind of looking through trying to see what you think is different. And I've already glanced through this, but I want to kind of... Okay, here we go. This is a big one right here. You remember when we were looking at players, if you've watched any of the earlier videos, and we talked about security and loyalty and not really understanding what that meant. what that meant, how it affected me recruiting that player. Oh, let's go back up to all. There we go. Well, right here, these both factor in a minor way relating to how long you are on a recruit. Okay, so if your team, if you as the owner, as the coach, start recruiting a player in week 1, and I don't start recruiting the player until week 4, then his loyalty and security ratings are going to lean towards you because you've been on him for 3 weeks longer than I have. Um, Also, they do note that some of the top players in the country will not sign until at least after week 10 because they are, the blue chippers like being wined and dined and catered to, which is pretty realistic when you think about it. And, so you start looking at a player in week 8 or 9 and somebody's been on him since week 1. That's where loyalty and security comes in. So let's see. Security indicates the player getting used to the thought of moving his life to your program, making plans, imagining himself living away from home, and time to make practical preparations. Okay, so that's a pretty clear definition of what security is. Loyalty represents how much he values persistent recruiting. So that's going to be your week 1 against my week 3. That's going to be your 10 points against my 8 points. While the security is just basically him wrapping his head around moving, say, let's go back to the game, say this kid from Yakima, Washington, possibly moving to Alabama to play for the Crimson Tide, or moving to Baton Rouge to play for LSU, or moving to Southern Cal to play for USC. That's where you've got to say, okay, I've got to get my mind around that. So that's actually kind of good. So now we really know what these mean. Now, there's a couple of other tweaks in here. I have talked about them. Now, I still have quite a few videos in the recruiting series. This is some changes that are taking place after I've recorded all those videos, but before I've put them up. So you have to keep that in mind, that those videos are now dated to a certain extent, but I still think they're good to look at. But this is important. Because a player has a rating in each of these, they all have a different impact. Now, just because he values close to home, as an example, doesn't mean you can't convince a player that is far away. And that's these loyalty and security. So again, the higher that matters, then the more chance you have of overcoming something else. So let's say that that I'm at LSU and I'm recruiting this guy out of Washington State. Well, if he values, what I need to do here, I'm going to auto recruit, and we're going to go ahead and do the regular season here, just so I can get some guys on the board. It may not be that particular guy, but that's okay. Also, I want to see if maybe the game is using. Oh wow, we lost our first game. Not good. I forgot to do my. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do my depth chart. Not good. Oh, and my quarterback got hurt. Oh well. And game plan. I didn't do that either, did I? Well, that would be why I lost. Let's see. Now let's go to recruiting. I want to look at just my targets that I am recruiting. Alright, so here we go. Alright. They have not scheduled any interviews. Alright, so we're going to have to schedule those real quick. Let me schedule these guys. And I'm just going to schedule the first 8. again, this is just for, this is not for me to, win or anything right now. This is for, um, just for us to be able to look. All right, so we have a high interest, unscouted. I'm not going to do scouting. Again, I'm not sure if they're doing scouting or not, but let's go ahead and sim this week. Alrighty. Alright, let's see. So recruiting summary. Alright, so we did have an offer out on Shane Johnson. He's already signed with Georgia. Now, again, I did note that most of your blue chippers, your top rated guys, will not sign early. So this seems to be an outlier that he signed early, which is fine. That's going to happen. Okay, we picked up all of our guys. Alright, let's see. So let's go to our recruiting screen again. View by recruiting. Alright, so our interview's done on these guys. He was one of our top 8 because you can see I have an interview here. Alright, so let's take a look at this guy, Timothy Peterson. Now, he is a quarterback out of Arkansas. He's being recruited by LSU, Auburn, Alabama, and Oklahoma. And I want to touch on this too. Alright, now we have not scouted him yet. This recruiting skills section is based on your scouting points. So I'm going to put 10 points on these two guys just to be able to look at that. And let's go back in. Alright, so, but because we've done our interview, now we have the player profile has popped up. Now this gives his leadership ability, work ethic. Now a quarterback with just an average work ethic, I'm not too impressed with. Now that doesn't mean that he won't have abilities once I start scouting him that offset that, but maybe I won't be as interested in this guy as I maybe should be. Competitiveness, team player, he's not a very good sport. Disposition. All right, now here's where we get into the things that determine where he's going to go to school. And I want to stress, just because market size and playing time are number 1 with 80%, does not mean that these other factors don't matter. Okay, they do. Basically it's a mathematical formula. Now these are going to be more heavily weighted, okay? But even this 24 in security and 19 in prestige are going to matter a little bit, okay? So if you are a 30 prestige team in the Sun Belt and you're on this guy, and then Alabama, Oklahoma, and LSU come in, the higher prestige is going to matter, but not as much as it could matter if this was an 80 instead of these. Okay, so it's a factor of everything rolled together. But let's take a look. So security, basically I can tell these guys have been on him because they are recruiting him. That means he has an offer and he values playing time. Now that boils down to, if you remember, his ability to play for your team early as a freshman or a sophomore. He is actually looking at your depth chart. So who do you have on your depth chart? Well, let me look at my roster. He's a quarterback. And I'm only going to look at by position. And I'm going to sort by year. Now, I'm not going to get this guy, I can pretty much guarantee, and here's why. I picked up 4 freshman quarterbacks last year. 2 of them were 5 stars. 2 of them were 4 stars. Now, I am losing 2 seniors after graduation this year, right? Ooh, fractured jaw. Wow. I am losing 2, but I'm still going to have 4. Now, where does that come into play? Well, if we view our positional counts for quarterback, the minimum you need is 3. As of next year, I'm going to still have 4, which is 1 more than the minimum. So this quarterback, in recruiting him, let's go back to his card. This quarterback, in recruiting him, is going to be looking at my depth chart with his playing time being so high, and he's going to say, they've got 4 freshman quarterbacks, which means when I come in next year as a freshman, those 4 guys will all be sophomores. I'm going to have to sit behind one or 2 of them for 3 years before I get a chance to play. So basically, and you can even opening the card again, you saw LSU, I was listed 4th, now I'm listed 1st. And that's the point I was going to make. This only shows the teams that have offers on him. That is not indicative in any way of preference on the player's part. And that's a good point to keep in mind. That does not give any indication of the player's preference in these teams, because I was 1st now, I was 4th a minute ago. And we haven't done anything except close the card and then open it back up. All right, now I'm 3rd, and you saw all I did was close it and open it back up. So that's very random. So this is something you as the coach have to factor into play, and you have to factor all of this in. Okay, market size, well, we're all SEC schools except Oklahoma. We probably have an edge there because market size is based on your conference prestige. I would like to see somewhere where we can actually look at conference prestiges if that's a factor, because over time, I mean, you know, we kind of have a gut feeling today in real life, which this is probably based on, you know, the SEC and then probably the Big Ten and then the Pac-12 and then the Big 12. ACC will be mixed in, you know, somewhere down there. But, you know, what about 5 years from now? What about 10 years from now? What about 30 years from now? As we sim forward, those are certainly going to adjust. So it would be nice to have like a, you know, maybe like a newspaper article come up, you know, with updated conference prestiges, maybe every spring when you'd go into your training camp or something, that, you know, that you could then refer back to. That might be helpful, because honestly, I won't know the answer to that, and you know, your gut's only going to get you so far. And I'm thinking also about an online league, you know, where we have leagues that are in their 26th season. What happens when you get a new guy that comes in and joins that league? He's not going to have any inkling of an idea, you know, after 26 years of simming, on what the perceived conference strengths are. So I think that would be good to, you know, for us to be able to at least have some general reference. Anyway, off of that, security. Now again, we just talked about security and loyalty, what those were. So security, getting used to the idea. Well, basically he's saying, hey, you know, that's not really big on me. I can just kind of jump at whatever, you know, I want to. Now, if this was higher, you know, 80 to 90, then he would be saying, man, you know, I really need time to think about this and get my mind set on that. You know, so that's going to play a bigger factor. In this case, not so much. Loyalty, basically how long you've been on him. Well, I've been on him since week 1. And that's an above average, you know, but I already know these guys have been on him just as long, so I'm not gaining an advantage. But if you're a team that's not on this guy yet, and now we're here into week 3, and you go, okay, well, this is above average, so he does value that. Well, you're already behind the 8 ball in that category, because these four teams, let's say Oklahoma State wants to get in on this, or Miami, well, you're kind of behind the eight ball because, he does value this, and it's his third highest factor. These four teams are already well ahead of you, so maybe this is not a guy to go after. Now you also have to balance out, are any of these teams going to pull off on this guy? Like I just said, even though he's interested in me with a 92, that doesn't mean I'm going to get him because of these factors. And I think playing time in this case would kill me. And I would probably come off of this guy where I doing the actual recruiting rather than just doing it for the video. Winning, well, I mean, Alabama right there, 2-0, plus they have a history of winning. Auburn, 2-0, history of winning. LSU, did we lose again? Wow, we're 0-2, and we fell out of the poll. We're ranked number 70 after 2 weeks. We went from number 2 to way out of the polls. Wow. Okay. So we're having a down year. But at least, in this case, it is current winning, but also historical. So I have the historical, but not so much this year. And then Oklahoma, 2-0, number 2. So, the fact that I've lost 2 games, that may hurt me with this guy too. I don't think a lot, and then value winning is only 25%. Again, this is a mathematical formula, which we don't know what the math is, and we don't need to know, but you just need to know that the higher these are, the more important. But just because these are are on the unimportant scale, doesn't mean he's not considering it in his thought process. Let's see, what else in here? Okay, this is important. Every value matters. This means you can not only look, and this is what we were just talking about, you can not only look at the values he rates highly. A common misconception is only looking at values above 50, thinking he will base his decision solely on them and ignoring the others. This is a mistake. Perhaps your team is winning on one rating he values the most, but if you lose out on all the others, it might even out. So, it's a scale, and so, just to kind of put some numbers that may help it make sense, and keep in mind this is my thinking with numerical values. So if we put 1 point per 10, so this would be 8 points, 8 points, 5 points, 2 points. Well, that, if you're winning here but you're losing on all of these, well, 2, 4, 6, 8, well, that basically balances out to the 8 points you got in this category if somebody else is winning these 2-point categories. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. A major factor in your chance to get a player is the other teams pursuing the player. And yeah, okay, I'm just kind of reading this to make sure I'm looking at it right. Okay, so after the first recruiting sim, which we've already done, we've done 2, you can see a list of teams recruiting the player. And here you are. For this guy, it's these 4 teams, and this is what we just talked about. Okay. Keep an eye on your competitors to help you assess. You guys might want to check your spelling on that post there, fellas. I'm sure that's supposed to be assess, to help you assess whether to cut bait on a player. If you are a small school and you see Bama waltz in with a handful of trinkets and a scholarship, perhaps it's time to show yourself the door, even if his value prestige is low. All right, so this guy's a great example. Prestige is only a 19. It's actually his lowest rated. However, let's say this was a completely different circumstance, that you had, say Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Lafayette, North Texas, and Middle Tennessee State. All right, those were the 4 teams up here recruiting this player. And then Alabama or Auburn or LSU or Oklahoma popped in even if it's week 4, 5, 6, even though prestige is low, that's certainly going to garner some attention with this kid and could swing it, even though it's a low value, could swing it to that team's favor. The other thing is, and this was important, recruiting is not a winner-takes-all affair. This means every team on a player has a chance to get him. And I think this is where most of us were getting confused, or maybe having some middle block issues on understanding why we were losing players, things of that nature. The chance of his preferred team is much better than the rest. Now, what that doesn't tell us is, does he have a preferred team from the get-go, from the outset? I'm guessing that there is. It's hidden. We don't know who it is. And, his top team may not even recruit him. But the upshot of this is that the more teams that are on a player, the lower everyone's chance to win, to get him to sign gets. So even if you're his preferred team and you have a 90% chance to get him, if you let's say that in this case it's only Auburn and Alabama, and he's leaning towards Auburn. Well, with only 2 teams and Auburn being his preferred team, they might have a 90% chance to get him. Alabama would still have a 10% chance, and remember, it's a game, so it all comes down to these dice rolls that take place inside the programming. So if you only have 2 teams, then one is going to have, say, a 90% chance, the other one's going to have a 10% chance based on these factors and his preferred school. Now, the more teams that get on him, those chances drop. So now we've added 2 more teams into the mix. So if Auburn is his preferred team, now they go from, say, a 90% chance to maybe a 50% chance, and then the other 3 teams still have a 20% chance each of getting him, or 15%, 17%, whatever. So their chances actually go up, while the favorite's chance goes down, just by the sheer number of teams in this example. So that's something important to keep in mind. And again, he does say, I'm making up numbers here just to kind of help you kind of understand. So rather than getting, you could run this same simulation basically 10 times. If it was just your team and one other team, you might win him 9 out of 10 times. But you could still lose him that one time. Once you get it up to 4 teams, 6 teams, well, now you might only get him 5 out of 10 times. So you have to pick your battles. Okay, that's what they're basically saying. Current rank. In addition to previous winning seasons, your current ranking matters. I don't think I saw current rank in here. Okay, well, I'm not sure that we've actually, I see that in here, but your current rank. So right now, because I'm 0-2 and I have fallen from number 2 to number 70, that's really going to hurt my chances with some of these, especially with these top players that I'm competing with: Oklahoma, Auburn, Alabama. Okay, so that's something else to look at. All right, the interest bar is an indicator. Okay, high interest does give you an indicator that you're in the hunt. Okay, so I know I'm in the hunt here, but again, we talked about playing time being one of his 2 most important things. I'm even here. I'm even here because we've all been on him since week 1. So these are even. Winning overall, I would say we're even, but I would probably be last because if we're even historically, I'm last right now in current winning. Playing time, I know I'm hurt. I'm probably last with those four freshmen. Close to home, I may actually have an advantage there, or Oklahoma. But we may have an advantage over Alabama and Auburn. So even though it's not high, that does factor in. And prestige, not important, but we're basically all on the same page. Okay, so am I in the hunt? Yes, he is interested, 92%. I could have a 92. If you were Alabama, you might be at a 96. Oklahoma might be at a 94. We're all right in the same ballpark. So again, that goes back. Doesn't mean that just because you're the highest that you're guaranteed to get him. But that might be an indicator that you have a slight advantage. But again, you have to make up your own mind. And I think in looking at this player and thinking about it, because of those four freshmen I have, that's going to hurt me. I think we're basically even on everything else, and that could be the indicating factor. All right, players value persistence. We've already seen that one. I think we saw that one already. I know. Okay, the recruited by list. That's up here. Now we've talked about that a little bit, but this is an addition. On this provides a list of 5 teams in no particular order. To be listed, a team must have offered him a scholarship, and he must have more than a 50 interest. So this guy could have 12 more scholarship offers, but all from teams that are below 50 interest to him, that basically he's not very interested in. Alternatively, let's say Auburn, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Well, let's just say, for example, right now I am at a 92. So I would be on this list because I have an offer and I'm over 50%. Now, if I cancel his offer, even though I'm over 90%, 50%, I would disappear off of this list because I have not offered him. So you have to have both of those, greater than a 50 interest and a scholarship offer. Importantly, this does not indicate who is in the lead, and the team in the lead may not even be listed. So again, it only shows 5 teams. If he's got 7 or 8 or 9 teams offering him, you're only going to see 5. So if there's 5 teams on there, he's got at least 5, possibly more. In this case, we only have 4, so he only has 4 offers. We can be guaranteed of that. Okay? Or there's more teams, but he's below 50, which we aren't going to really concern ourselves with. The game will normally reflect the biggest teams targeting a player. If no one has offered a scholarship to a player, and let's see if we can find a guy that does this. I need to go back to both. Right here. Okay. It says none. Okay. Now this is a 4-star player ranked number 160 in the country out of Connecticut. It says none. What does that mean? Nobody has offered him a scholarship yet. Or he has a scholarship but below, no, take that back. So he says none. That means that, let's see, someone has, if it says none, it means that no one has offered him a scholarship. Now, if it's blank, and I could probably scroll through here for a while and not find a blank one. Basically, okay, it says none, but if it was blank, if it just said recruited by and there was nothing there, the word none was not there or anything else, then that means that he has a scholarship, at least one scholarship, but he's below 50% interest in that team. Okay, so those are indicators of guys that you may want to look at and go after. In multiplayer leagues, because that's where most of these questions are coming from, the further you get into the season, the more weary you should be when it's blank, because a minor team may have stacked up a lot of points. So if it was actually blank, which means he has an offer but he's not below 50% interest, and we're in week 11, and I come in and go, hey, there's nothing there, I'm going to offer this guy a scholarship. Well, then we're looking at the point system, and let's go back up here. So we can see right now I've spent 18 points through 2 weeks on this guy. Well, if you think about it, if they've got the maximum of 10 points for 10 weeks, and I haven't even been on that player, they've already accumulated 100 points on that player, and I've got 0. And then when you start looking through the card, well, they're going to really own security and loyalty, right? They're going to own those categories. You've got no shot. So even when they're low percentages, they are going to factor into the decision-making process, and that's how maybe LSU loses a player to a Baylor, or Baylor's come on in recent years. Maybe that's how you lose to a Tulane or an Arkansas State, to use a couple of examples, because they just had such a head start on you. And that goes back up to that loyalty and security factors that are now in place. All right, well, I think that's enough. I think we've really hit the high points. The guides, which you can find on the Wolverine forums, have all been updated. There's actually a few new guides that were just added today. Player traits, some of their specialties, and an update to the rankings, to the ratings, and what they mean. And that's these skills right here. So they've actually updated that today and what they basically mean. So highly recommend going and checking that out, because there are a couple of completely updated posts, but I kind of wanted to go over everything that was updated in the guides based on what was updated in this patch. So looking forward to seeing how this translates into the game. Really, I'm excited about number 6, the redistribution of talent. And then several of these other things are, they're just tweaks and fixes, but you do have the redistribution, the current rank in recruiting, and the current draft class rank. That's interesting as well. So thanks for checking out the video. I know it was a little longer than I like to normally go, but I wanted to kind of cover everything that was involved in this particular patch release. Thanks for checking it out. Check the game out for sure. There is a free demo for it if you have not bought the game. Check out the free demo over at Wolverine Studios, and then look into some online leagues if you want to get out there and play some other human opponents. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.